The rain had been falling since dawn, a soft and steady rhythm, soaking the garden in freshness. Each droplet landed with a tiny splash, pooling in the folds of leaves and dripping down to the damp earth below. For most creatures, the rain might seem inconvenient, but to Drizzle, the dreamy snail, it was a perfect day. Drizzle lived in an ancient tree stump at the edge of the garden. Her little house was a cozy haven filled with treasures. A mossy bed that felt like a cloud, a leaf blanket that kept her snug, and an acorn-top table surrounded by smooth pebble chairs. Tiny holes in the stump worked as windows, keeping her safe and dry. This morning, the rain's soothing melody gently woke her from her slumber. She stretched lazily, blinking her sleepy eyes as she shuffled toward one of her windows. Outside, the garden looked magical. Raindrops clung to every leaf and petal, turning the plants into shimmering jewels. Carrots stood tall like arranged towers, while lettuce heads looked like lush green hills. Drizzle yawned and murmured, "What a perfect day for an adventure." After packing her breakfast, a juicy berry wrapped in a crisp leaf, she slid out of her tree stump. The cool, damp air felt wonderful on her shell, which gleamed under the tiny droplets of rain. Moving slowly, she left behind a glistening trail as she ventured deeper into the garden. Her first stop was at a large puddle near the daisy patch. The daisies, their white petals heavy with rain, swayed gently in the breeze. Drizzle paused by the puddle and gazed at her reflection in the rippling water. "Hello, puddle," she said with a sleepy smile. The puddle didn't answer, but she liked to imagine it shared her dreamy mood. She watched the raindrops create ripples for a while before moving on. The garden was alive with quiet wonders. A bumblebee buzzed past, adding its soft hum to the rain's melody. Drizzle tilted her head, enjoying the sound. As she passed the sunflowers, their golden heads towering far above her, she marveled at their size. "I wonder what it would be like to climb one," she thought. She imagined herself perched atop a sunflower, looking down at the garden like a queen. The thought made her smile, her slow movements filled with contentment. The strawberry patch was Drizzle's favorite place in the garden. Even from a distance, she could see the flashes of red among the lush green leaves, and her sleepy eyes lit up at the thought of the juicy treat waiting for her. Slowly but steadily, she slid closer, the slight drizzle of rain pattering against her shell like a lullaby. As she reached the patch, She paused to take in the scent of the strawberries, a sweet and tangy aroma carried on the cool, damp air. She loved how the rain brought the garden to life, making every color brighter and every smell richer. Carefully, Drizzle began her search. She weaved her way through the tangle of green leaves, her movements deliberate yet unhurried. Finally, she found it, a plump, bright red strawberry hanging low to the ground, glistening with tiny droplets of rain. Perfect, she whispered to herself. Stretching her neck, she took a small bite, her tiny teeth sinking into the soft fruit. The flavor burst onto her tongue, a mix of sweetness and freshness that made her smile sleepily. Drizzle savored each bite, pausing between them to enjoy the rain's gentle rhythm around her. By the time she had eaten enough to feel full, she was even sleepier than before. But the thought of heading home didn't feel urgent yet. There was still more of the garden to explore. She slid slowly away from the strawberry patch, her body swaying rhythmically with her movements. The rain had softened into a faint mist, wrapping the garden in a dreamy haze. Every raindrop on a leaf or petal seemed to sparkle like a tiny jewel, and the air was cool and refreshing. Drizzle's next stop was the daisy patch. The tall white flowers swayed gently in the breeze, their petals heavy with rain. One daisy, bent low to the ground, seemed to bow toward her as if inviting her closer. Drizzle stopped beneath it, marveling at its delicate beauty. She reached out and touched a petal, which was cool and soft to the touch. As she looked closer, she noticed tiny droplets of water running along the petals, catching the faint light and creating a shimmering effect. For a moment, she simply watched the droplets fall, her thoughts drifting lazily like the ripples in the puddle she'd seen earlier. The hum of a bumblebee brought her back to the present. Drizzle tilted her head to listen, the bee's gentle buzz blending with the rain's soft patter. She loved how the bees moved from flower to flower, spreading life throughout the garden. It felt like nature's own quiet symphony played just for her. Jake Henske. Feeling peaceful, Drizzle moved on toward the sunflower patch. These golden giants were her favorite to admire from below, their enormous size making her feel even smaller than usual. The rain had made the sunflower stems glisten, and their yellow petals shone like little suns against the gray sky. Drizzle stopped at the base of one sunflower, craning her neck to look up at its towering height. In her mind, she imagined climbing all the way to the top. where she could perch on a petal and see the entire garden from a new perspective. I'd be able to see my tree stump from up there, she thought, smiling at the idea. As she continued her journey, the rose bushes came into view. Their bright red flowers glowed against the backdrop of green leaves, each one a masterpiece painted by the rain. Drizzle approached cautiously, aware of the sharp thorns covering the stems. She admired the roses from a safe distance, their tiny spiral tucked inside a shell. She noticed the raindrops clinging to the rose petals, magnifying their deep red color. The scene was so mesmerizing that Drizzle stayed for a while, watching the rain dance across the roses. It was moments like these that made her love the garden even more. It always had something beautiful to offer, no matter the weather. By now, Drizzle was starting to feel the weight of her journey. Her body swayed more heavily, and her eyes drooped as she made her way back toward her tree stump. She paused briefly at the daisies to listen to the bumblebee again, then stopped at the sunflowers for one last look at their golden heads. Finally, her cozy tree stump came into view. Drizzle slid inside, grateful for the warmth and quiet of her little home. The rain outside continued its steady rhythm, a soft and calming sound that seemed to echo the garden's heartbeat. Inside, Drizzle arranged her moss bed, fluffed her leaf blanket, and tucked herself into her shell. The comforting darkness of her home wrapped around her like a hug, and she felt completely at peace. As she drifted off to sleep, the rain continued to sing its lullaby, carrying her into a dreamy world where the garden stretched endlessly. In her dreams, Drizzle climbed sunflowers taller than mountains, swam in puddles that sparkled like stars, and discovered secret treasures hidden beneath the leaves. She smiled in her sleep, her slow, sleepy adventure continuing in the magical world of her imagination.